Maharaj, I have a question, and please feel free to comment on this. Between manifest and the question is manifest and unmanifest.
Once more.
The question about manifest and unmanifest.
Yeah.
Now, in the unmanifest form, my understanding is that the three gunas are in
Equilibrium.
Exactly. And it has to be that one of the gunas has to be in imbalance to be manifest. Is that correct?
Yeah. There should be a disturbance in the equilibrium. Then only creation starts. So, this topic could be discussed from two perspectives, from the Vedantic perspective or from the Sankhya perspective. Now, Sankhya philosophy is accepted in Vedanta in its details, but not in its conclusions. So, to the extent that it describes the evolution of this universe from the unmanifest Prakriti through Mahat or cosmic intelligence and Ahankara in its three dimensions, Sattvika, Tamasika and Rajasika, and again Tanmatras, finally culminating in this created world which consists of Panchamahabhutas. So this evolution is accepted in Vedanta. But the basic difference is, in Sankhya system, there are two fundamental categories, Purusha and Prakriti. In Vedanta, instead of Purusha, which in Sankhya is endowed with Chaitanya but inactive, in Vedanta, Purusha is defined as Puri Sede Iti Purushaha. Pura means this physical body, with 9 openings. In that body, the Atman is immanent, the inner resident, Antaryami. In that sense, it's called Purusha. That Atman is capable of creation, but not affected by creation. That Atman by its very nature is omnipresent, immanent and transcendental. Everything else belongs to a different ontological category. So from an ontological point of view, in Sankhya system, both Purusha and Prakriti have equal status. You can't say one is absolute, other is non-absolute. But in Vedanta, Atman is the only fundamental absolute category. Everything else, including Prakriti, is relative. So, the word unmanifest and manifest should be understood from these two perspectives. Unmanifest is the state which we call avyakrita, is a state where the created world is an involved condition. Involved means potential. Like the huge banyan tree is involved in the seed. It is different from the tree, but it is capable of evolving into seed. So creation in Sankhya is evolution. In Vedanta it is projection. The absolute projects itself as the relative. Brahman, when looked from the standpoint of relativity, that is time, space and causation, is seen to be this world. But the same reality, when perceived, when you transcend Maya, is perceived as Brahman itself. That's why, Sri Ramakrishna says in the Gospel, in the Samadhi state, when the Jivatma Paramatma Aikya is experienced, there is no world. So he cannot even drink water. He can't eat. So a person in the Samadhi state, remember the Samadhi state in Vedanta is different from the Samadhi state of Yoga. That is different. In Yoga, Samadhi is the 8th Angashtanga Yoga, 8th one. That Samadhi state is only prelude to the highest realization in Vedanta. Yoga conclusion is different from the conclusion of Vedanta. Yoga is great, good, yama, niyama, right all the way up to Samadhi, will help you to become fit and qualified for the highest realization. So coming back to your subject, the manifest is this world. When the unmanifest is disturbed in its equilibrium, then it starts evolving. And when it starts evolving, it assumes nama and rupa. Rupa, the forms, nama is the particular thought system that we use to distinguish one rupa from another rupa. That's why we name it. Suppose, think of it. Suppose the whole world is pervaded by the same thing, there won't be any names. Names are required when you have to distinguish X from Y. If everything is X, then there is no need of name. When you make different ornaments from the same gold, where you may call a ring, one form is called a ring, another form is called maybe necklace, another may be called something else, like that. So, when there is nama vaividhya, I mean diversity in terms of forms, then you need to use a particular name to distinguish one rupa from another rupa, one form from another form. This happens when the avyakrita is disturbed by the equilibrium state of avyakrita is disturbed, and when it begins to evolve, when avyakrita or unmanifest becomes the manifests. But the whole thing happens within the relative from the Vedantic perspective. In Yoga perspective, or as Yoga Sankhya interrelated, in Sankhya perspective, this evolution happens all the way from Prakriti right up to these Panchamahabhutas, the Nama Rupa Jagat, But then all these are already present in the Prakriti. It's called involved state. Antarli. And just as this tree is involved in the seed. So that takes you to a few other important concepts in Vedanta, because in Vedanta has got different, not in Vedanta but Indian philosophy, the 6 systems of Indian philosophy, Astika Darsanas, there are different ways of analyzing the process of cause becoming the effect. One is Vivartavada, where the other is Parinamavada. So, 2 different approaches. Vivarta means the cause only appearing to have become the effect. Parinama means the cause evolving by Parinaman, becoming, transforming itself into effect. Like the seed becomes oil. The oil cannot go back to seed form. But this gold can appear to have become the necklace. But the fact that it is only an apparent transformation will be clear to you. You melt it, it goes back to gold. But you cannot bring oil back to seed. But if you make a pot out of clay, You break it, goes back to clay. So the real transformation is called parinama. A transformation is called transfiguration. They have coined a new English term while translating into English language. It's again very an approximation to the original term. So transfiguration is transformation, not real but apparent. Now these two views take for granted one central principle, that is the effect pre-exists in cause. Unless the effect pre-exists in cause, the cause cannot either become the effect through transformation or can appear to have become the effect, as in Vivarta. So this should be understood. Sankhya believes in real transformation, like the seeds becoming oil. Vedanta, Advaita Vedanta believes in apparent transformation. Of course, Ramanuja system, Madhva system, Chaitanya, all these systems also believe in real transformation. Ramanuja is the idea, whole Brahman becoming this Jagat and Jivas and pre-existing within Brahman itself. So that's it's a complicated system because it could be explained only in terms of Prathak Siddhi, which I think I have no time to explain right now. So the whole point is, Vedanta believes that there is no such thing as Brahman becoming the Jagat. So Swami Vivekananda in his complete works, Jnana Yoga lectures, is trying to put this in the language of modern science. So he says, for example, when you look at the absolute reality Brahman through the prism of time, space and causation, there is relativity of Maya to be more traditional. Then that Brahman appears to have become this world. So when you are in a samadhi state, when you experience the highest Advaitic realization, then you transcend the relativity, transcend the time-space continuum, so to speak, and then you see Brahman as it is. When Swami Vivekananda had his first experience of Advaita in Dakshineshwar temple, Sri Ramakrishna he didn't find any way to convince him, because Swamiji was a firebrand talking about John Stuart Mill, Hegel and Kant, mind you, 19th century students going to universities used to keep in their hands a copy of Origin of Species and be proud of it. So that was the fashion in those days. And these James Stuart Mill's essays on ethics, all these were very fashionable. As now you keep some modern IT books, like that. So that is the fashion, Academic syllabi were very traditional, more focused on European thought systems and history. So Swamiji used to argue with Sri Ramakrishna. So one day he came to Dakshineshwar. He said, you say I am God, you are God, this chair is God, all this temple, brick mortar, everything is God. So he was trying to talk to Sri Ramakrishna. Because Sri Ramakrishna, of course, on previous occasions I tried to explain to him. And then Sri Ramakrishna touched him and transmitted this Advaitic experience to Swamiji. So you read the description. First, Swamiji found, he experienced, all the things in that room vanished. The temples, all the diversities vanished. Nama Rupa became merged with one single brilliant substance. And then that also vanished, and finally he found everything within him and he in everything. Now, this cannot really be explained. So one of the problems in Advaita is, in Advaita, two things are beyond definition. and verbalization. One is Maya. You cannot explain. So Mahadbhuta Anivachaniya Rupa. You cannot explain it. The other Brahman, both are beyond explanation. What is there to explain? Explanation is possible only with the relative. Maya you cannot explain because it is neither real in the absolute sense of the term. It is not unreal in the absolute sense of the term unreal. We should be trained in Advaitic hermeneutics and logic even to intellectually understand this. Or you should have Samadhi like Adbhutanandaji. Both are same. So what happens sometimes we try to understand this without either the Samadhi experience of Adbhutanandaji or the logical training of a traditional Vedantic scholar. So, but still we can explain this through common sense. Advaita is pure common sense. Advaita is pure common sense. Even a student studying in primary school who knows basic principles of physics can agree with Advaita. You tell him, he is wearing his clothes, holding a book in his hands, using a pen or a pencil to write, traveling by car. You tell him, do you think this book that you're holding in your hands, was it book yesterday? It was in the shop. But what was it 100 years back? It must have been in the form of a tree or cotton or some substance which had gone through so many changes, which now manifests in the form of a bound book in his hand. All the parts of the car made of steel, many things. Where was the steel 100 years back or thousands of years back? It was in the form of iron ore, thousands of feet below the earth. Now it has taken the shape of a steering wheel perhaps, or anything you like. Everyone understands. So real Advaita is the simplest common sense. In fact, it is more difficult to misunderstand Advaita because it's pure common sense. That's one of the reasons why if you go to Himalayas, you find people from all over the world belonging to all traditions. They are only concerned with Advaita. If you talk about Ramanuja system, suppose Swami Vivekananda had brought to America Ramanuja system. People have thought we had our Spinoza, who was far greater devotee than Ramanuja himself. God intoxicated man, that's what they call it. There are so many saints and sages who communicated with God all over Western world. But they have not heard of a thing like Advaita, which tells you that God is there within you. Try to manifest it. Through unselfishness, niskama karma, meditation, then the divine comes out itself. So, from the experience point of view, Advaita is very simple. You look towards your own inner world and then you will find what you are searching outside is within you. That's why, of course, in the Rigveda Samhita, one of the most well-known suktam is called Nasadiya Suktam. So it is called the creation of him of creation. Anyway, so it begins like this, Nasadasi, no Sadasi, like. But there is one statement, Sato Bandhum Asadi Niravindan Kriti Pradeshya Kavayo Manisha. Kavaya means mantra darshinaka or rishaya, means the enlightened sages. So they were going in search of the cause, the final cause of the world. So instead of saying God sat one day morning after breakfast and created this world, instead of saying that, the Rishi says, Sadobandhum Asadiniravindan, not seeing the final cause of creation in the external world, the sages turned their attention inward and then they realized the cause of the creation, cause of the universe within themselves. This anyone can understand. If you go on meditating one day, or many days, many years, if you pray, if you lead a pure life, then you have a different experience. What does it mean? The divine within you is slowly opening, blinking its eyes, looking around, manifesting. It's opening. So this is from the highest spiritual perspective. From the ontological perspective, look at the world, this cosmos, which may be a few billions of years old. After several billions of years, it vanished. It becomes something else. Yesterday I was referring to the article in Scientific American. One of them, there was somebody here who said he read it. I read it maybe 6-7 years back, but the article must have appeared in an issue of the Scientific American maybe much earlier. So an old copy I read when I was in Vedanta. Now it is based on a hypothesis. So it begins like this. Suppose the whole humanity gets wiped out one day, disappears. What will be the shape of Manhattan district within 2 years? So the water system, it will be disturbed, it will be full of water everywhere. So it will be flooded with water. And then there are pictures like after 100 years, then many of the streets have cracked, buildings have collapsed, and small plants and grass and weeds have started growing the top of the dilapidated buildings. And then there are pictures 5,000 years. After 5,000 years, it will look like some old relics. Then finally, the last picture is what will be the shape of this place, which part of the world, after several billions of years. So you can't see anything, it's only in gases form. So all the Nama and Rupa your manifest has gone back to the unmanifest or non-manifest. And maybe after several millions of years, again the water, oxygen, all this may start emerging, and then lower levels of organisms and lives will, like that evolution will continue. So nothing vanishes, disappears in the absolute sense of the term disappears. It goes back to its causal form, only to return in its effect form. So the evolved world goes back to its involved state, from gross to subtle, from sthula to sukshma, and then the sukshma again projects itself and begins to manifest. So different things happen. So one form you call one name, another form you call another name. So Nama and Rupa emerge. When Nama and Rupa emerge, then you make use of different diverse things for diverse purposes. So Vyavahara Buddhi also differs. So you use a glass for drinking water, use a huge pot for storing water, made of the same thing maybe. So one has got one form, another got another form. So two different names and two different purposes. So the journey from unmanifest or avyagrata to the manifest is a journey from cause to effect. But when the cause becomes the effect, it is only a temporary adjustment. The effect will go back to the cause. So this change is called Parinama in Ramanuja system in most of the non-Advaitic systems of philosophy. But Shankaracharya says it is not permanent transformation, because if it is permanent transformation, then it cannot go back to its original form. Like oil cannot go back to its seed form. Your clothes you are wearing is nothing but so many threads appearing in a particular form. You also give it a different name. To test it, you tear it to pieces, it goes back to its thread form. And again, If it disappears, withers away, it becomes part of the earth, and from the same earth, cotton, all these things begin to emerge. So, the entire cosmology in Vedanta is pure science. You can test if you want. You ask any little child, he will tell you, well, after 10 years I will be taller, heavier, bigger. That means I am changing. He doesn't say I am remaining the same. He doesn't want to remain like that, in fact. So, change means relativity or impermanence. Changelessness means permanence or absoluteness. So changelessness is possible only for one reality. But then it may appear to have become different. It may appear to have changed. That's all.
Something is wrong with the...
No, turn it on.
I have to. It's not okay, I already got it. Thanks. Maharaj, this is terrible what I'm doing. This is in the same line as what she asked. This is from yesterday. I was asking you yesterday.
So we want more terrible things, more terrible questions on philosophy, Vedanta.
No, because the whole point is to see God, and the point is not to intellectualize God.
Yeah.
So that's why it is terrible. But because it came to me in that panel, that's where the question is. So I was trying to tell you yesterday, I was trying to ask you yesterday that this idea about Janmantar, of this reincarnation, there was this question that, so let us say we believe in Big Bang, which is one of, as I understand, is one of the current phases of the cosmological development. And then in our case, in this world, first...
May make one remark in this context. A Big Bang may amount to be some kind of a negation of creationism, as mentioned in the Bible. But Big Bang doesn't question and cannot question the logic of Vedantic cosmology or ontology, so to speak.
And so I will actually relate it to that. So we understand pretty well what has happened since then. There are big problems like dark matter, dark energy. Other than that, we roughly understand how in this world, from the primitive soup, like you were just telling her, the first forms have started, and then since then eventually evolution would happen. And we come. Somewhere along the line, we also put in, the Hindu scientist, we put in the word that what I'm going through here is because of my past lives. So there are two questions. One question is, if you go back a couple of million years, do the first bacteria, the first algae, or the first protozoa, do they also have karma? Did the karma cycle start? When did the karma clock start? And the second question is that, based on what you answered yesterday, which I also believe that it is cyclic, that means there's evolution, there is expansion, and though current physics doesn't say that, but eventually there will be involution. Do they transcend each epoch, so to say? That means this bacteria today is actually inheriting karma from previous. So even in the local way, that means for this particular expansion, when does the law of karma start?
Beginning of law of karma. So now that again, the law of karma will take you to the basic question: when did creation start?
Yes.
So creation, to give just one simple illustration, asking the question, when did the creation start, is something like this. Suppose it's a dark room, semi-dark room, there is a piece of rope on the floor and you mistake the rope to be a snake, a piece of maybe a crack on the floor, a thin stream of water, or maybe a stick, curved stick. So therefore in Danda, Jaladhara, Bhuchidra and Sarpa, for classic examples. Okay, you mistake this. And you, anyway, to begin with, you thought it's a snake. So you jump about, you run about, get a stick to beat and to remove the snake, and finally somebody came and switched on the light. Then you ask God, where did the snake go? You realize it's a piece of rope. So the question arises, I saw the snake, where did it go? That question, the question when did the creation start, is as logical or as illogical as this question. Where did the snake vanish? The snake didn't vanish anywhere, because to begin with there was no snake. Snake idea vanished when the light came. Now, to begin with, creation, this world, all the way from bacteria to educated, intelligent people, the whole spectrum of so-called creation belongs to the realm of the relative. It is not absolute. Focusing on the relative, we can ask, again we can come down to the relative, from relative perspective, we can ask the question, did the bacteria did it have a past in which life it was not a bacteria, and then it became a bacteria, and again after several millions of years of evolution it can become a professor who may eventually go back to bacteria after several millions of years. So this question arises. Yes. So based on the characteristics, attributes that we accumulate on the strength of our karmas and vasanas, the samskaras, we can go down in the track of evolution, or we can go up. Both ways are possible. So it is possible for one to go down all the way, technically speaking, to the level of lower creation, lower levels of creation, by which bacteria, all this can be included. And also you can evolve and ascend the spectrum of creation and reach higher levels of existence. You can become mystic, you can become like divine beings in next life. So it's possible. That is what Vedanta says. But again, the moment you realize that you are not something that goes on changing because of different samskaras, vasanas and impressions and vrittis rooted in your actions or karma, the moment you realize that you are something other than this constantly changing, evolving mechanism, that moment you get out of this wheel, rotating wheel of cyclic existence, you become liberated. So it's like water in a pot, or rather space in a pot and space outside. Now the limitation that we impose upon the space within the pot, Ghadakasha, is only imaginary thing. The moment you break the pot, it merges with the outside world. So through meditation, through spiritual practices, we reach not the belief level but the experience level of our spiritual consciousness, that we are something other than this body, mind, intellect. We are the all-pervading reality. When this becomes a matter of experience, then this pot is broken. And that state is called Jivan Mukta state in Vedanta. That's why great saints, even after reaching this state, they continue living in this world to teach. But that state is different from the state of ordinary people who have not reached this state. So that's why great saints and great teachers, I'm often quoting Sri Ramakrishna's example because Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna is a book that most of you have read. So I'm taking that example. Now, Sri Ramakrishna gives the example of a king playing the role of a beggar. Or in the Shankara's commentary, Rajnyaha Veena-vadanavat. So a king playing violin in his own court, where he doesn't have to please anybody. He's free, he's free. If he calls a professional musician, the musician will be very eager to give a good performance. But a king does it for his own joy. So also an award-winning actor plays the role of a beggar, homeless man. He may get an Oscar prize. He may look more beggarly than a professional beggar. Because then only he will get an award. But then he knows very well, even while receiving the award, when you mistake him to be more beggarly, more wretched looking than a beggar, he knows that after this he'll go to his third 5-star hotel room. So he is not worth it. So Jivan Mukta is like that. Jivan Mukta lives in this world, teaches, goes through all these experiences, but in his heart he knows that he belongs to a different plane. So when you realize this spiritual dimension of your true personality, you get out of this rotating wheel of cyclic existence. Otherwise, there is every chance that we may end up being a bacteria. And also there is every chance that we may end up being a Buddha. Buddha means the enlightened one. So, but again you ask the question, where does it begin? Where does the wheel begin? A wheel has no beginning, no end. Every point is a beginning and end of the wheel. Only a straight line can have a beginning and end. So, when did creation begin? Again you have to remember, and that's a very important point that many thinkers in modern times do not keep in mind. The very question that when did all this begin is rooted in one central misunderstanding. That's because in Abrahamic religions there is always the basic concept of a monotheistic God creating this world one day from nothing. But Vedanta begins in its inquiry in a very arbitrary way, with a God sitting somewhere and creating this world. That will be very simple. But instead of that, Vedanta, more like science, it looks around, analyzes this world of names and forms, and then tries to find out a basic explanation, a cause for this world. It's more like science, inquiry, tracing effect to its cause. Abrahamic religion begins with an arbitrary position of a monotheistic creator God. So that's the basic point. So this question is logical only from the perspective of Abrahamic theology, the theological background of Christianity, Islam and Judaism, but not from the either Buddhistic or Vedantic perspective. No.
But Maharaj, please do not explain this, because apparently he has a question and others may have a question, but you do have a question, right? You wanted the microphone. So we can postpone it, but there are two sub-questions which will come out of, which means that if it is a delusion, which I believe it is, or a projection, in that when you were explaining to Vijaya, you said one model is a projection model, then it almost follows that at any given moment, a person like me, since I am at this moment I realize this whole thing is not there at all, if I realize Brahman. But since I am playing this game unconsciously, I guess, therefore for me, at this moment, there is a so-called Big Bang and everything. So you are in some way claiming that I and she and he and she, everyone at all the time, simultaneously in their own way, creating their illusions, creating a so-called cycle of Big Bang and Big End and Big Bang and Big End. Am I understanding it correctly that it is all in our own, each in our relativity that we are creating simultaneously, not checking with each other, of course, this whole creation. So there is no such thing as her creation and my creation has to be correlated according to Vedanta.
Yes, now coming to the question, you used the word delusion, you used the word, there's a
Projection.
See, a projection. Remember, in Vedanta, the world or the projected world is not a non-existent entity. It is not pure imagination. Shankaracharya takes pains to refute the arguments of the Vijnanavadins and these Yogacara philosophers, which we call subjective idealists, like Berkeley's appearance reality, something. It's a prelude to this modern subjectivism, subjective idealism of Berkeley. The idea that the external world is unreal, the idea that the external world is non-existent, is not found in Vedanta. What Vedanta says is, this external world is not permanent in the absolute sense of the word permanent. Because to call something paramarthika or absolutely real, a permanent in the absolute sense of the word permanent, it should remain in the same position without any change for all times. Anything which had a birth, which an origin, is subject to growth, evolution, decay and disappearance. It is subject to changes in the past, present and future. It is subject to different perceptions in waking state, dream state and deep sleep state. So three criteria. So Vedanta never says this world is unreal in the absolute sense of the word unreal. Vedanta only tells you this world is not real in the absolute sense of the word real. Because to qualify to be real in the absolute sense, it should remain the same without any change. And anything that is created, that takes birth, has to go through changes. Sadvigara, 6 changes. The world is not like that. Nor this chair, nothing. Remember, it doesn't get destroyed, but it changes. So changeability always is a condition for impermanence. So what is that which is permanent? Only that which is never created is permanent. And because it was never created, it can never be destroyed. It was never created, but it's real, so it will never be destroyed. As for avidya or maya, it is also beyond definition. It is beyond definition because it is not real in the absolute sense, so you cannot say it is real. It is not unreal in the absolute sense, so you cannot say unreal. So that which is neither real nor unreal is beyond definition. So long as you have not realized the highest spiritual truth, this world is real. That's an important point to remember. Vedanta tells you, till you realize the absolute truth, this world is real. Shankaracharya's commentary makes a very interesting statement. Prag Brahmatma Vijnana Sarva Loka Vyavaharanam Satyatva Buddhi. Yatha Prag Prabodhasya Swapnavat means When you are sleeping, when you are dreaming, when you see different objects, you are walking in the street, but actually you are sleeping with eyes closed in a dark room, but you don't realize that it's only dream before you wake up. When you are within dream, your dream's experience is real for you, as your waking state experience is real for you during waking state. You realize the dream aspect of your dreams, not within dream, but when you come out of dream. Similarly, before we realize the highest reality, before you reach that highest samadhi state, jiva brahmaikya state, this world is real for you. So what you should do? Advaita himself says, Shankaracharya says, you must practice niskama karma, you must practice unselfishness, you should meditate, you should pray, you should do puja, you should lead a very pious, disciplined life. Otherwise, Advaita can become just an ideology. So that's another great misunderstanding. In fact, that's a major problem. Right now, I am being assaulted by a few professors from the University of Berkeley who are writing a book linking Advaita with modern physics. And they think Advaita is like utilitarianism, Kantism. Just like if you teach Marxian philosophy in Oxford, you don't teach here, of course, in Oxford. You are called a Marxist. Here, of course, for God's sake, they don't do that. But in European universities, if you teach Kant's critique of pure reason, you are called a Kantian.
Yeah.
If you teach Hegel's, you are called a Hegelian.
Yeah.
If you teach James Stuart Mill or Jeremy Bentham, you are called a utilitarian. But you don't have anything else to do with Kant or Hegel or anybody. You just teach that book, and you may be guiding a few students for the doctoral thesis, and you are called a Marxist or a socialist, things like that. Similarly, if you read Shankaracharya book, you are called an Advaiti. No, you can never be an Advaiti if you just read Shankaracharya's books. That's a basic difference. One could be called an Advaiti only if he is practicing along with the reading, a strong conviction, he should practice. That's why Shankaracharya shouts a slogan like Ingilab Zindabad. But he says, Sutya, Yuktya, Swanubhutya, that is his slogan. First read the scriptures, Upanishads, mostly Upanishads, Vedas, and then use your intelligence, think, Sravana, Manana, Nididhyasana, and then you should reach Anubhuti, your own experience, then only you become an Advaiti. So frequently there's a major problem in Western world. So everyone, I'm an Advaiti. So I'm writing a book on Vedanta. So things, of course I don't want to use the appropriate adjectives, but so I don't want to use them. Terrible actually, it's absolutely great disservice to Vedanta. See, Sri Ramakrishna became an Advaiti because Totaburi taught him, and Sri Ramakrishna had an experience. 3 days he sat in Samadhi. That is how he practiced Advaita sadhana, not Advaita training in a university. That is the real Advaita. Even Adbhutanandaji did not read any book. When Swamiji was explaining one mantra for the Upanishads, so Adbhutanandaji, oh yes, it is like that. Adbhutanandaji, it was a description of the state of the Jivan Mukta state, which Swamiji was reading loudly, the Bhashya. Then immediately Adbhutanandaji said, yes, it is like that. It's like that. But he had not read it perhaps himself. No, that's a basic point. You can be anything else, but you can never be an Advaiti just because we believe in Advaita. Our conviction will take you a long way towards practice, no doubt. But conviction doesn't make a person Advaita. That's why Anubhava avasanatvad bhutavastu vishayatvaja brahma vijnanasya. Says the Brahma Sutra Bhashya and Buddhaniga Bhashya. See, Advaitic sadhana ends with anubhava, experience. It is experience that makes you Vedantic. Then you may ask the question, why should we read the Upanishads then? Because the answer is, Upanishads alone have the courage to say openly that the real truth is beyond books, beyond us. In all other traditions, even in all non-Advaitic traditions of India, a sacred book is holy. Upanishads are the holiest books. But Upanishads themselves tell you it is only Aparavidya. That's why in Mundu Upanishad there is a dialogue between Angira and his disciple Mahashala. That's a great devotee comes. So Paracha. So even the Upanishads themselves are Aparavidya, secondary knowledge. What is the primary knowledge? Primary knowledge is Anubhuti. But only Upanishads have the courage to say that. So we look upon Upanishads as sometimes a Moksha Shastra. In that sense, in a very relative sense, we may call them Paravidya. But in a very relative sense. In the absolute sense, only experience, Anubhuti is Paravidya. That's an important point. So the Upanishads constantly proclaim loudly the highest truth is beyond us. No other books have the courage to say that. The highest truth is beyond us. You wanted to ask something?
Maharaj, my question is a little more general and mundane. As you rightly said a few minutes ago about the experience in our motherland over so many centuries, thousands of years, avatars, Swamijis, noble people, Sri Ramakrishna, Bhagwan, Ramakrishna. What is the disconnect between the faith and the followers in Hindus? If you look at until recently, at least the followers of Islam, they were true to their book.
They were
true to their book. I mean, they were not killing each other until like 2-3 decades ago.
And they were doing that for quite maybe 1500 years, if you look at history.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is...
not maybe on the same scale.
Yes. We have such an ocean of knowledge, and so many faiths and the divisions. And what is the disconnect and how do you bridge the gap between what is said and what is practiced and even what is heard?
Yeah.
Here we have about 2,000-3,000 people in Pittsburgh. We have 50 sitting here. So for us, most of the time, we have the ordinary things, rituals, a contract between us and God. Okay, I offer this puja, I get this benefit. I do Vishnu Sahasrama so many days, I get this benefit, and then we stop and move on. So, on those lines, can elaborate what is it that needs to be done? I mean, at a Vedantic level, we can say, well, you just do your own thing, what you say about others, community. But out of interest, I just want to know. But
that's true, as people, as a society, Indian society is not different from any other society. These jivas evolving, and you have to ask one question: who were we? Who were us in a previous life? So a person in America is born in this country, in different tradition, different culture, showing great interest in Vedanta.